Hello and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nawreen. In today's bulletin, we will present top and trending news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. US President Biden sends best wishes to Muslims on Eid al-Fitr. Biden signs order prioritizing environmental justice. US to begin training Ukrainian troops on Abrams tank. White House says no evacuation plans for all Americans in Sudan. White House recruits Edward Lee as a state dinner guest chef. Drive-by shooting owns 3, kills 12-year-old bystander. Richard Riordan, former Los Angeles mayor, has died at 92. Prosecutors dismiss Alec Baldwin charge, citing new evidence. Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr holiday with feast prayers. Stampede in Yemen at Ramadan charity event kills at least 78. Child among 10 family members killed in South Africa shooting. UK Deputy Prime Minister quits after bullying investigation. Russia's Air Force accidentally bombs own city of Belgorod. NFL suspends 5 players for violating gambling policy. Toronto fires Nick Nurse, who led Raptors to 2019 NBA title. And Alcaraz and Tsitsipas advance to Barcelona Open semis. You are listening to Headlines Now News in detail. US President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden congratulated Muslims worldwide on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of the fasting month of Ramadan. Jill and I extend our best wishes to Muslim communities across the country and around the world as you celebrate Eid al-Fitr and conclude the holy month of Ramadan, said Biden in a written statement. Eid al-Fitr has been celebrated in most countries on Friday. Traditionally, Eid is a 3-day celebration marked by large family festivities and prayers. With the sighting of the crescent moon, Eid al-Fitr is a festive celebration where Muslims feast after the holy month of fasting, decorate their homes, give gifts to loved ones, wear new clothes, and visit family and friends. I am moved by the generosity that is shown from families that can provide food and give charity to those in need through Zakat al-Fitr, Biden said. As we celebrate our blessings this Eid, let us also recommit ourselves to the timeless work of building peace and standing up for the rights and dignity of all people, he said. My administration is also committed to addressing all forms of hate, including Islamophobia. This is why I established an interagency task force with senior government officials to tackle these and related challenges and encourage every American to build a more inclusive nation, he added. To all celebrating, Jill and I wish you and your loved ones a happy and blessed Eid al-Fitr. Eid Mubarak. Biden added. Muslim worshippers in all over USA celebrated Eid al-Fitr on Friday, April 21, marking the end of the fasting month of Ramadan. President Joe Biden on Friday signed an executive order that would create the White House Office of Environmental Justice. The White House said it wants to ensure that poverty, race, and ethnic status do not lead to worse exposure to pollution and environmental harm. Biden tried to draw a contrast between his agenda and that of Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. GOP lawmakers have called for less regulation of oil production to lower energy prices, while the Biden administration says the GOP policies would give benefits to highly profitable oil companies and surrender the renewable energy sector to the Chinese. Environmental justice will be the mission of the entire government, woven directly into how we work with the state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, Biden said in remarks at the White House. The order tells executive branch agencies to use data and scientific research to understand how pollution hurts people's health, so that work can be done to limit any damage. Under the order, executive agencies would be required to inform nearby communities if toxic substances were released from a federal facility. As part of the announcement, Vice President Kamala Harris is separately traveling to Miami, Florida to announce $562 million to help protect communities against the impacts of climate change. The United States will begin training Ukrainian forces on how to use and maintain Abrams tanks in the coming weeks, as it continues to speed up its effort to get them onto the battlefield as quickly as possible, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said Friday. The decision comes as defense leaders from around Europe and the world are meeting at Ramstein Air Base in the effort to coordinate the delivery of weapons and other equipment to Ukraine. According to the officials, 31 tanks will arrive at Grafenor training area in Germany at the end of May, and the troops will begin training a couple weeks later. Officials said the troop training will last about 10 weeks. The training tanks will not be the ones given to Ukraine for use in the war against Russia. Instead, 31 M1A1 battle tanks are being refurbished in the United States, and those will go to the front lines when they are ready. Germany, meanwhile, has signed a memorandum of understanding with Poland and Ukraine to set up a maintenance hub for Kiev's Leopard 2 tank fleet in Poland, near the Ukrainian border. Germany's defense minister Boris Pistorius told reporters he expects the hub to cost 150 to 200 million euros per year, which we will split fairly like everything else. He said he expects it to start work around the end of next month. The announcement came as ministers and representatives from about 50 nations gathered for the US-led meeting of what's called the Ukraine Defense Contact Group. The Pentagon has deployed forces and is developing options to assist in the possible evacuation of US Embassy personnel from Sudan. But the White House said Friday there are no plans for now for a broader pullout of the potentially thousands of other Americans from the African country where warring factions are in a violent conflict. The troop moves by the US military are intended to ensure that we provide as many options as possible if we are called on to do something. We haven't been called on to do anything yet, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said at a news conference in Germany. Austin and U.S. Army General Mark Milley, the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman, held a meeting with defense leaders from other countries to discuss additional support for Ukraine. An estimated 16,000 private U.S. citizens are registered with the U.S. Embassy in Khartoum as being in Sudan. The State Department has cautioned that the figure probably is inaccurate because there is no requirement for Americans to register, nor is there a requirement to notify the embassy when they leave. For embassy staff, according to an American official, a small number of U.S. troops have begun arriving in the Horn of Africa nation of Djibouti, where the U.S. is pre-positioning forces and equipment to assist in any potential evacuation. The official said Army soldiers are being tapped for the task. The U.S. troops are being moved to Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti. Evacuation planning for Sudan got underway in earnest on Monday after a U.S. embassy convoy was attacked in Khartoum, the Sudanese capital. Chef Edward Lee says food at its best tells a story. And the story he once told with the meal he is whipping up for next week's White House state dinner is of the deep connection between the United States and its ally South Korea. President Joe Biden is hosting South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol on Wednesday for a state visit, including a glitzy state dinner, and the White House invited Lee, a Korean-American chef and restaurateur, to help prepare the meal. The White House gave the Associated Press an exclusive preview of its plans to use Lee as a guest chef for the meal and of its high-wattage lineup for the after-dinner entertainment. Broadway stars Norm Lewis, Lee Salonga, and Jessica Vosk. In an interview with the AP, Lee said Korean food and American food can merge together and create this beautiful hybrid that is unique and delicious. He said any iconic American food, if spiked with a little Korean flavor or Korean spice, will still be familiar, but it will just be different and unique. Real food for thought, he said. Your mind becomes curious about more than just the flavors, Lee said. When food is at its best, it tells a story. A state visit is the highest diplomatic honor the U.S. reserves for its closest allies, and Biden so far has extended just 2 such invitations. The first went to France last December. Bullets sprayed out from a speeding car in Connecticut's capital, killing an innocent 12-year-old bystander and wounding 3 other people who have rap sheets that include gun crimes, authorities said Friday. The suspects in the drive-by shooting appeared to target 3 males who were standing on a sidewalk on a residential street not far from downtown Hartford shortly after 8:30 p.m. Thursday, city police said. Secret Pierce, a 7th grader at Miller Middle School, became Hartford's 7th homicide victim of the year. She was sitting in a parked car when she was shot in the head, police said. She died Friday morning. The 3 other victims, males ages 16, 18, and 23, were expected to survive. This is a painful day in our community, Mayor Luke Browning said at a morning news conference outside police headquarters. I don't have the words. I want to say to Secret's mom and loved ones that we all are so deeply sorry, that we are with them today in grief, in prayer, and with love. A tragedy like this ripples outward in a community and affects so many. Police Lieutenant Aaron Buzzword said Secret was an innocent bystander. Very tragic, very unfortunate, sickening, he said. Investigators searched for the suspects Friday. The shooting was captured on surveillance video, but the footage was grainy and police were trying to identify the suspected vehicle, Buzzword said. Authorities believe there were 2 people in the car. It was not immediately clear why the 3 males were targeted. Richard Riordan, a wealthy Republican businessman who served 2 terms as Los Angeles mayor and steered the city through the Northridge earthquake and recovery from the deadly 1992 riots, has died. He was 92. Mayor Richard Riordan loved Los Angeles and devoted so much of himself to bettering our city, Mayor Karen Bass said in a statement late Wednesday. I extend my deepest condolences to all who loved and looked up to Mayor Riordan. May he rest in peace. A statement from Riordan's family dated Wednesday announced the death of a beloved husband, father, grandfather, and uncle. The statement said he died at his home in the Los Angeles neighborhood of Brentwood, surrounded by his wife, Elizabeth, family, friends, and precious pet dogs. There was no immediate word on the cause of death. Riordan, a moderate who made a fortune as an investment broker, has the distinction of being the last Republican mayor in what is now a solidly Democratic city. Prosecutors have formally dismissed an involuntary manslaughter charge against Alec Baldwin, in the fatal 2021 shooting of a cinematographer on the set of the Western film Rust, citing new evidence and the need for more time to investigate. In a stunning turnaround for the 65-year-old A-list actor, special prosecutors Carrie Morrissey and Jason Lewis filed the notice to dismiss the only charge against Baldwin on Friday in a state district court in Santa Fe. Prosecutors say the investigation is ongoing. An involuntary manslaughter charge against Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the weapons supervisor on the film, is unchanged. An online status hearing was scheduled for Friday afternoon in a state district court in the case against Gutierrez-Reed. The hearing initially was to also include the Baldwin case, but that was called off after the charge against the actor was dismissed. Friday's court filing echoed earlier statements from prosecutors that new facts had been revealed in the investigation that demand further investigation and forensic analysis, with little time left before evidentiary hearings scheduled to start on May 3. Now it's time for global updates. The holiday of Eid al-Fitr ushered in a day of prayers and joy for Muslims around the world on Friday. The celebration was marred by tragedy amid the explosion of conflict in Sudan, while in other countries it came against the backdrop of hopes for a better future. After the Ramadan month of fasting, Muslims celebrate Eid al-Fitr with feasts and family visits. The start of the holiday is traditionally based on sightings of the new moon, which vary according to geographic location. In Sudan's capital Khartoum, a staccato blast of gunfire marked the early hours of the feast day. A deadly conflict in the West African country that erupted in the past week has forced many people to shelter indoors ahead of the holiday, even as water and food for civilians runs low. In Jerusalem, thousands of faithful gathered at Islam's third holiest shrine, the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, where tensions with Israeli authorities have seized in the past month. The compound also hosts Judaism's holiest site. The streets of Arab capitals of Damascus, Baghdad, and Beirut were crowded with worshippers heading to mosques and cemeteries. Many Muslims visit the graves of their loved ones after the early morning prayer on the first day of Eid al-Fitr. Visitors toted bouquets of flowers, jugs of water for plants, and brooms to clean gravestones. Islam's holidays follow a lunar calendar, but some countries rely on astronomical calculations rather than physical sightings. This frequently leads to disagreements between religious authorities in different countries, and sometimes in the same country, over the start date of Eid al-Fitr. This year, Saudi Arabia and many other Arab countries began their Eid celebrations on Friday, while Iran, Pakistan, and Indonesia, among others, set the first day of the holiday for Saturday. A crowd apparently panicked by gunfire and an electrical explosion stampeded at an event to distribute financial aid during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan in Yemen's capital late Wednesday, killing at least 78 people and injuring at least 77 others. According to witnesses and Houthi rebel officials, the tragedy was Yemen's deadliest in years that was not related to the country's long-running war. Armed Houthis fired into the air in an attempt at crowd control, apparently striking an electrical wire and causing it to explode, according to two witnesses, Abdul Rahman Ahmed and Yahya Mohsen. That sparked a panic, and people, including many women and children, began stampeding, they said. Video posted on social media showed dozens of bodies, some motionless and others screaming as people tried to help. Separate footage of the aftermath released by Houthi officials showed bloodstains, shoes, and victims' clothing scattered on the ground. Investigators were seen examining the area. The crash took place in the old city in the center of Sana'a, where hundreds of poor people had gathered for a charity event organized by merchants, according to the Houthi-run Interior Ministry. 10 members of the same family, 7 of them female and one a 13-year-old boy, were killed in a mass shooting at a house in South Africa, police said Friday. A male suspect was killed in a shootout with police hours after, and 2 men were arrested. A fourth suspect escaped, but his identity is known and he is being sought, Police Minister Vicky Seller said. According to initial reports, the family was ambushed by gunmen at the home in the city of Pietermaritzburg in the eastern KwaZulu-Natal province, police said. The shooting happened in the pre-dawn hours of Friday. Police initially announced that the victims were 7 women and 3 men, but later said that at least one child, the teenage boy, was among the dead. The oldest victim of the mass shooting was 65, Seller said, and the youngest was the 13-year-old. He didn't give the ages of the other victims. UK Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab grudgingly resigned Friday after an independent investigation found he bullied civil servants, though he criticized the findings as flawed. Raab's announcement came the day after Prime Minister Rishi Sunak received the investigation report into 8 formal complaints that Raab, who was also Justice Secretary, had been abusive toward staff members during a previous stint in that office and while serving as Britain's Foreign Secretary and Brexit Secretary. Attorney Adam Tolley, who conducted the inquiry and noted that bullying was not a legal term, found Raab acted in a way which was intimidating, was unreasonably and persistently aggressive, and introduced an unwarranted punitive element to his leadership style. His conduct also involved an abuse or misuse of power in a way that undermines or humiliates, Tolley wrote in the 48-page report. Raab denied claims he belittled and demeaned staff and said he behaved professionally at all times. Russia's military acknowledged that a bomb accidentally dropped by one of its warplanes caused a powerful blast in a Russian city not far from Ukraine's border, injuring 2 and scaring local residents. Belgorod, a city of 340,000 located about 40 kilometers east of the Russia-Ukraine border, has faced regular drone attacks during Russia's current military operation in Ukraine. Russian authorities blamed the earlier strikes on the Ukrainian military, which refrained from directly claiming responsibility for the attacks. The explosion late Thursday was far more powerful than anything Belgorod residents had experienced before. Witnesses reported a low hissing sound followed by a blast that made nearby apartment buildings tremble and shattered their windows. It left a 20-meter wide crater in the middle of a tree-lined avenue flanked by apartment blocks, damaged several cars, and threw one vehicle onto a store roof. 2 people were injured and a third person was later hospitalized with hypertension, authorities said. Immediately after the explosion, Russian commentators and military bloggers were abuzz with theories about what weapon Ukraine had used for the attack. Many of them called for a strong retribution. But about an hour later, the Russian Defense Ministry acknowledged that a weapon accidentally released by one of its own Su-34 bombers caused the blast. The ministry did not provide any further details, but military experts said the weapon likely was a powerful 500-kilogram bomb. Military experts charged that the weapon appeared to have been said to explode with a small delay after impact that would allow it to hit underground facilities. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 15,578.93. The NYSE composite is decreased by 4.01 points or 0.03%. Tokyo stock close price is 28,564.37. The Nikkei 225 index is decreased by 93.20 points or 0.33%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,301.2575. The Shanghai Composite Index is decreased by 65.77 points or 1.95%. Hong Kong stock close price is 20,075.73. The Hang Seng Index is decreased by 321.24 points or 1.57%. Bombay stock close price is 59,655.06. The Sensex Index is increased by 22.71 points or 0.04%. Let's have a look on today's sports stories. Three NFL players were suspended indefinitely Friday for betting on NFL games in the 2022 season, while two other players, including the 12th overall draft pick a year ago, received 6-game suspensions for betting on non-NFL games at a league facility. Detroit Lions wide receiver Quintez Cephus, Lions safety C.J. Moore, and Washington Commanders defensive end Shaka Toney are sidelined for the entire 2023 season and may petition for reinstatement afterward. Lions wide receivers Stanley Berryhill and Jameson Williams each received a 6-game suspension, though they will be able to participate in all of-season and preseason activities, including preseason games. Their suspensions will start at the final roster cutdown. The NFL said that a league review uncovered no evidence indicating any inside information was used or that any game was compromised in any way. Gambling incidents have been relatively rare for the NFL. Most recently, wide receiver Calvin Ridley was suspended for the entire 2022 season for gambling on NFL games. He was later traded from Atlanta to Jacksonville and was reinstated. In November 2019, Arizona Cardinals cornerback Josh Shaw was suspended for gambling on an NFL game. He has not played in the league since. Toronto Raptors president Masai Ujiri didn't see a lot to like this season as his team struggled to a .500 finish and a disappointing play-in defeat. So Ujiri kicked off an off-season of change on all fronts on Friday by firing Nick Nurse, who led Toronto to its first and only NBA title 4 years ago. To watch us play this year was not us, Ujiri said Friday at his end-of-season news conference. I did not enjoy watching this team play. I think that spoke loud and clear to everything that went on this year. It bothered all of us. It bothered coach too. But sometimes we have to make change and we have to move forward. Nurse went 227-163 in his 5 seasons as coach in Toronto, where his .582 winning percentage ranks as the best of any coach in Raptors history. He also spent 5 years as an assistant to former Raptors coach Dwayne Casey before taking over the top job. Nurse had mused about his future before a March 31 game at Philadelphia, saying he planned to take some time to decide what he wanted next. Defeating yet another Spanish countryman, Carlos Alcaraz stayed on track to defend his title at the Barcelona Open. Alcaraz beat Alessandro Davidovich Fokina 7-6, 6-4 to make the semifinals on Friday, along with beating Roberto Bautista Agut in the quarterfinals. Alcaraz improved his record against Spaniards to 9-1 since the start of 2022. The only defeat was against Rafael Nadal in the Indian Wells semifinals last year. Alcaraz broke Davidovich Fokina's serve for the second time in the final game to clinch the victory in more than 2 hours on the Rafael Nadal center court. Alcaraz lost 3 straight games toward the end of the first set before prevailing in the tiebreaker. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest update. Millennium TV US and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV. And also in all European countries and Australia, available with the Sky Network, Worldwide Jago TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.